Hello, everybody. This is John Gimpert, a member of the CFO leadership team. Welcome to Mastering Development of your Finance Team. Just a little while ago, we heard from Jason Warwick, CFO of Robinhood, how scaling of his team was a critical success factor for him in his career. We're going to hear more about that from a great panel, so stay tuned. As soon as I complete a couple opening comments here, we'll move on to the panel. First of all, I want to share with you, my focus at the CFO Leadership Council is about helping to shape the content of our programs and our different sessions. But it's a really easy job because I have the opportunity to work with a super team at the CFO Leadership Council and many of the great thought leading CFOs that actively share their perspectives and insights that benefit all of you. If you want to hear or see more about our content, go to our website, cfolc.com. You can check it out. Or if you're a CFO and you want to contribute content, you can reach out to any of the members of the CFO leadership team and express your interest in being part of the community of contributors that make the CFO Leadership Council what it is, about CFOs, for CFOs, to help them all to be very successful. Now, let me introduce our moderator for this session, Todd Cunningham. He's a master himself in developing and growing people. Todd is an experienced people executive with over 30 years of experience. He is Chief People Officer at Avid Exchange, a rapidly growing technology company. Avid Exchange is a leader in the area of automating invoice and payment processes to mid-market companies, and is an important sponsor and thought leader for the CFO Leadership Council. Todd, please take it away and open up the panel of experts.
John, thank you very much. Really excited about today's discussion. We've got a great panel, and so let's jump right in. Today's environment is all about change. And as you guys know, unexpected events like COVID-19 have now become expected with shorter business cycles and a greater reliance on technology affecting finance. Change is ongoing. So I'd like each panel member to start off by introducing yourself, and why don't you share some thoughts on how you think today's finance teams should look given the state of change that we're all experiencing. Let's go ahead and start with you, Tracy.
Thank you, Todd. I appreciate that. My name is Tracy Ahern. I am the Chief Financial Officer and Chief Risk Officer for PineBridge Investments. We are a global firm in over 22 countries and manage over $100 billion in assets. In terms of looking at teams and developing a strong finance team, especially one that's global, the challenges are numerous. The days of us just being the back office and running the numbers have long since dissipated. The challenges of managing capital, managing a variety of regulatory requirements throughout the world. I think anyone working in the post-08 scenario has seen the dramatic difference in regulation and as well as just simply tax rules, which was sort of the older function. How to do business in those countries and how to be ahead of the curve in terms of understanding the impact on the financial aspects of the firm and really being part of the strategy team to move any business forward, I think has been more of a challenge. So how we think about talent, where we can automate effectively in terms of being able to minimize the number crunching and use our people talent on strategy, forethought, and communication, and really working more hand in hand as business partners, I think is the real challenge for today's CFO. And you really need to spend time creating a multicultural team that can do that.
Excellent. Terry.
Thanks, Todd. I'm Terry Coelho. I'm the CFO for BioDelivery Sciences International, BDSI. BDSI is a publicly traded commercial stage pharmaceutical company. We're located in Raleigh, but obviously have a national presence with our products. I've been the CFO there for coming on 2 years now. Prior to that, I have a variety of experience, finance experience, general management experience in both publicly traded private companies, across established organizations and startup organizations, internationally, domestically, and across a variety of industries. So have had the opportunity to grow, and actually that'll be something I'll talk about when I answer the second part of your question. I think, now more than ever, I think today's finance teams need to be very agile, adaptable. They need to be both tactical and get things right, but they also need to be strategic and really aim to be business partners to whatever area of the business they support, even if it's somebody who's supporting a function they think isn't one that needs support. Most other areas of the business will benefit from having a strategic thinker, an analytical thinker, somebody who can help them work through things. So I think that business partnering is really, really critical, and finance is in a unique position to be a very good business partner. We tend to have visibility across the organization. We're at the center of it. We understand and have access to the information to help our business partners understand the drivers in their business and how to make a difference. So I think, that thought leadership that was talked about earlier, I think is super critical, but you still have to get the details right and the fundamentals right. And developing our talent to grow into those kind of roles is so critical. It's not something that comes easy to a lot of folks that have come out of, let's say, traditional accounting and so on. And I think it's, taking the time. You can't send someone to a course to do that. You really need to work with them in giving them experiences that enable them to grow and challenge them to think as business partners and not just as the numbers people.
Excellent. Christina.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Christina Fisher, and I'm the Chief Financial Officer at the American Hospital Association. In addition to finance, I also have responsibility for our information technology function and facilities as well. And at the AHA, as you might imagine, we've been really busy this year supporting our hospitals and health systems across the country, really helping them get the resources that they need to treat COVID patients. And to really help the communities that they're in. And so we've been taking great pride in the work we've done with the federal, state, local governments to really get our hospitals and health systems the resources they need to be successful this year. In particular for finance, if I were to add something to what my other esteemed colleagues have said, I would say a focus on communication skills. Which may be something that historically as finance and accounting professionals, we haven't focused as much on, but we need to be stronger communicators, both verbal and written. And that really helps us be business partners, as has been said, but we have to be able to tell the story behind the numbers. And telling that story is often to non-financial people. So how are we able to communicate and connect the dots between finance, strategy, and operations, and be able to talk with our colleagues in a way that they can understand and appreciate and really help them make decisions.
Excellent. And Judy. Oh, hey, Judy, you're on mute.
Sorry, I only pressed one of the buttons. We have done this for 9 months, but still a rookie error, sorry. So Judy Romano, I'm the CFO of Commercial and Technology at Intercontinental Hotels Group. I have been with the company since COVID hit. So I started about 2 weeks prior to COVID and have really had all my tenure working from home and leading the team through the transformation that we have been going through. Just to add maybe a little bit to what we have already heard is I lead transformation through technology. So I'm really helping the team understand the necessity to think differently on how to solve problems and how to automate some of the activities that we have done traditionally onshore. And the ability to offshore creates capacity onshore to do exactly what everybody said, which is really becoming the invaluable strategic partner to our business leaders. When I think about strategic partnering, the key here is present data-driven insights to the leaders so that they can make the right decision based upon data not hunches, not guts, not trends, but really data. So that's in the crux of everything. For that, we need soft skills like collaboration, data and analytics, understanding and being able to articulate what the numbers say, storytelling. So when talking to non-financial executives, they really hate numbers. How do we make the story compelling that we capture their attention and they understand where the opportunities or the risk lie? So that's very important. And as CFOs, we are in a unique position organization. We have the opportunity to connect with the CHRO, with the CTO, with the Chief Operations Officer, because we are the ones who eventually will sign off on investments, and we are the ones who will have to articulate any return on those investments and present it and create shareholder value. So I think it's a fantastic seat to be in. Any seat on the finance bus is a good seat, I think.
Excellent.
And for that, maybe just closing, for that you need the talent to help you drive that agenda. And that's what we are here to talk about today.
So all of you touched on strategy and how important it is for a CFO to not just deliver execution, but strategically. So let's talk about how CFOs should think strategically when it comes to their people. Christina, how have you gone about developing your people strategy in finance?
Yes, and that's a great question. And I think, first of all, it starts with expectations. And I think we've all talked about the increasingly more broad and complex responsibilities of the CFO and our teams. And so we have to start with the expectation of what we need to deliver to our business partners and to the organization, and setting those expectations across the team. And we're all a part of it. And then I think secondly, really recognizing that people learn at different paces and in different ways. We have a multi-generational workforce, as we all know, and our early careerists learn different and are motivated differently than those of us who may be more seasoned or in the last phase of our career. So I think recognizing not only how we learn and develop and are motivated differently, but also all of the great insights that we all bring to bear on the team. And one of the things that I found that works really well is pairing up folks at different phases of their career. So if I can pair up someone who's in later stages of their career with some of my early careerists and really create a buddy system or a mentoring system and let them learn from each other and really bring together all of those organizational insights together with maybe a bit more tech savvy, and putting those two folks together in a buddy system turns out to be really great for the learning and growth of both team members.
That's outstanding. The connecting of generations, you know, I was aware of another company that did reverse mentoring. So don't know if you've experienced that, but sometimes our younger millennials can actually do some mentoring as well on some of their technology expertise.
Absolutely.
Judy, same question for you. I know you're leading a lot of transformational change across your company. So how has that influenced your people strategy?
Yes, so transformation, it's, you know, before we used to say change is here to stay, and transformation is, I think, one of those that we will see continuously continuing, really, because this is not a revolution, it's an evolution, and we have to embrace it. So the first one I would say is that I really am very deliberate about looking for diverse talent. So when I think about that, diversity, I think about race, gender, where they come from, because ages, because the different points of views will make us richer. People come from different experiences, like Christina said, about they are in later stages of their career. Things might have moved on, but there's a lot of valuable experience that will help shape the earlier generation. So diversity is very important as I think about recruiting, diversity of the panels who are interviewing the candidates as well. So we are looking through different lenses as we are looking to find the right talent to fit into our organization. So that's very much a deliberate strategy. I'm looking for that, and I see the benefits of it. The other one is I look for skills. I mean, it's assumed you have the business acumen. So that's a given. I'm looking for the soft skills, as Terry mentioned, being nimble, being open to change, driving change, looking for opportunities, being open to be vulnerable. I don't know, help me out. I've never done this. People who are inclined to get out of their box. So really looking for those movers or shakers who are not afraid to venture down the path, but who will also be the ones who will say, oh, hold on one second, this is wrong. Stop it, call it, and move on to the next path. Because otherwise, you could find yourself down in a rat hole after a long time investigating something, and nobody will be saying that you are in the wrong place. So really looking for those soft skills that help us identify opportunities and move things forward. And maybe in terms of the education, I just made a hire. She's hopefully starting in 2 weeks. She's a data scientist. So she said, look, I haven't done a forecast really. I understand everything about numbers. So it's about being open to look for people with different invaluable skills so that can enrich my team. So I said, look, we can help you teach you forecasting and budgeting. You have to help us with data science. Isn't that a win? So really be open, not only looking through the traditional lenses, but expanding it because they bring a lot of value to the organization that we are developing.
Excellent. We actually have our first question that's been posted, and it's about reverse mentoring. By chance, has anybody on the panel experienced that yet? And if so, could you describe that?
Can you repeat the question, Todd, because it faded out? I'm sorry.
No worries. The question was, say a little bit more about reverse mentoring. And I wanted to see if any of you have had experience with it. Otherwise, I'll share my experience to date with it.
I have not.
So just to answer the question, reverse mentoring, typically mentoring tends to be a more experienced person that's helping maybe somebody who's lesser experienced. And sometimes that tends to correlate with time and job, right? And so reverse mentoring is the idea that you would take someone more junior who actually has a whole lot of skills, maybe even around some of the newer things that we need our finance people to be more proficient at. Judy, you mentioned technology skills. And so sometimes, not always, but sometimes some of our newer teammates are quite good and comfortable with technology. It could even be storytelling and communication skills. We might have somebody who could mentor a more seasoned teammate in that regard. So that was the question in the Q&A. Let's talk a little bit about the critical relationship between a CHRO, a Chief Human Resource Officer, and a CFO. That relationship's getting more and more important. I know that I stay at the hip daily with our CFO, Joel Wilhite. So Tracy, let's go over to you. How have you built your relationship with your head of HR, and how do you work together?
Sure. Well, for investment management, our entire product is people. And our largest cost by far is our personnel costs. We don't have fixed assets and so forth like other industries. So for me, I speak to my head of human resources daily and usually multiple times a day. Because the big thing we try and spend a lot of time working on, and something I've tried to bring to the organization, is really understanding how the performance of our individuals translates into financial results for the company. Often you hear, he's a great guy, she's a great woman, they're great performers. But what I'm really trying to instill in the evaluation of people is, how does that translate into tangible results? And if you have great people who are not, who are supposedly performing well, but not able to really deliver translatable results to the firm, then what are we doing wrong as an organization not to be able to help that person make that transition? Are they in the wrong job? Are we not harnessing their talents correctly? Is the part of the business that they're focused on not a successful business line, in which case should we redeploy them elsewhere if they're that high a performer? Those are the types of things that we spend a lot of time working on, and especially obviously this time of year in terms of compensation and so forth, as well as doing our budgeting, is really, again, understanding human resource deployment and the results that you can get out of that. And I don't want to make it sound so numerical, but it's also very important for keeping your talent, because people are aware if they're working hard and doing a good job, they know it's not translating into the business success as a whole. Either their division is an underperforming one and they're not in a position to make that change, or the product itself may need to move on to something else and be closed. So really spending that time in terms of performance management equating, I think, is a big piece for us. And then also setting a tone around understanding efforts to financial results as well at the very executive levels. And I work a lot with our HR head to drive that home, again, particularly around budgets and so forth, that there is a level of responsibility that everyone needs to take. So yeah, in my business, it's absolutely critical that we have a good, competent HR executive and that we spend as much time as we possibly can together.
Excellent. Judy, you're on my screen in front of me, so I'm going to throw you the same question. How do you partner with your chief HR officer?
So working for global multinational, I have two CHROs. So one is the business leader, so a business partner to the business leader. With her, I focus on more on the commercial HR, commercial organization. Do we have the right people in the roles? Do we have the right level of people? So it's more on the business side. I partner with her. We look at budgets. We look at the in terms of how many, the span of control, etc. But it's not for my organization, but it's for the business that I support. When it comes to the team that I lead, for that, the finance CHRO, I work with her all the time. My key area of focus there really is career development. So I drive my mentoring, I drive the education, the upskilling of my team. I do lunch and learns to have the team upskill and get new skills as things are moving on very fast. What I'm asking her to help me with is look at career paths. Look for mentoring opportunities outside of my area, because I don't know the company that way yet, not having been with the company for such a long time. Really focusing on the people and making sure that everybody understands the roles and what we want out of each role at each level, because roles change, roles evolve. And some employees develop faster than others. It's just making sure everybody's sitting on the right seat on the bus. And also getting an understanding, if I have an opportunity, how could I pull in internal talent? Who are those talents? Again, I don't have that knowledge yet and network, but really HR is helping me pull talent, introduce me to talent so that I could start making my own network and creating opportunities for cross-pollination within the larger enterprise.
Excellent. Thank you, Judy. I'll share quickly that several of you mentioned the connection between needing the finance team to have a better grasp of softer skills, and then sometimes the HR team needs a better grasp of the business acumen and the data. And so we've had some luck at AvidXchange of pairing up the finance business partner, the HR business partner that supports a particular business. They need to be just as joined at the hip as the CFO and the CHRO, and they can actually help one another a great deal on, balancing out the rest of their skill sets. Let's shift gears a little bit. I'm sure probably everyone in our audience to some degree is going through some form of transition. One form would be a new CFO coming to a new organization. Judy, you just mentioned you're fairly new at yours. So let's talk about that a little bit. Tracy, for a new CFO coming into role, what's critical to focus on with regard to talent?
I think the first thing is you have to listen. I spent probably the first, definitely the first 4 to 6 weeks doing nothing but having people talk to me versus me talking to them. And I think, and it does two things. One, obviously you learn a tremendous amount, but secondly, you gain a lot of credibility, particularly if people understand that they're being heard. So I think if you're coming in as a new CFO, and even if you've already been told, say, by the board or others in executive management in the interview process that changes need to be made and where they think they are, the more you can sit and be seen as an independent arbiter of those facts is very helpful when you do then, in fact, need to make some of those changes. The things I looked for when I came in were, who were the people who had the business acumen to do the job? What was their approach? What was their communication throughout the firm? Were they simply dialing it in every day versus really affording change? And did they have the core skill sets to take the organization to where it needed to go? Obviously, there was a need for change if you're changing the CFO, so that usually tells you there's something there, either whether it's just a timing skills gap that the one generation isn't ready to step up yet, or there are some other things. Clearly, like I said, by definition, there's a change. And then the other thing is when you're getting ready to make change, and I did make some substantial changes, removing almost an entire layer. And it's not the first time I've found myself in that situation. It tends to be what I do for a living coming in. The more you can do so with respect, on particularly if you are letting people go and it's seen to be done in as respectful a way as possible, you don't have to say a lot as to why you're doing it. What you then need to do is really convince your business constituents, and in this case, our clients. When you're the CFO, your clients tend to be internal as well as external, that there's something in it for them by either bringing the next group forward, or if you have to bring in from the outside, and being able to name some immediate deliverables that you can present with this level of change. In most cases, reasonable people already know the change needed to be made. It's just difficult for an organization to absorb culturally. They're friends with people. They've had longstanding relationships. They fear for their own positions because if that level of change, well, what will happen to me? I think the more you can be level-headed, calm, don't act as if the world is on fire, be very careful about how you talk about change. It should always be forward-looking. And with that, again, people know what needed to be done, and they're usually relieved that things were done. And if you're showing that there's great opportunity for some of the others in the organization and they get a chance to step up and shine, then it all works itself out. But it's hard. And it takes a lot of just listening to people and letting the emotions run through sometimes.
Yeah, definitely the how that you take an action like that speaks volumes to the organization that remains. In fact, let me open that particular point up to the group. How do you balance? How do you know when you're working with somebody and you need to develop their skills, or you've got somebody who, quite frankly, just will never have the skills, or what usually happens is they aren't going to be able to develop them fast enough, and you do have to take an action like Tracy you just described. For anybody on the panel, how do you try to balance that? How do you think about those two pieces that you have to balance?
And maybe I'll jump in here, Todd. I guess it's important, building upon what Tracy said, to really spend time with individuals and talk to them and listen. And actually, my approach, and people often, especially when I join a new organization or take on a new role, I tend to ask a lot of questions. I ask the questions partially because that's how I learn, and I learn about the business, but it also gives me a chance to understand how deep someone's understanding is and how they're approaching and how they're thinking, how they're approaching their actual work, whether it's something in a spreadsheet and how they reached a conclusion, or how they're calculating something, or what their source data is, whatever it is. It's taking that time first to make sure you're understanding what's going on in their mind and how they approach things. Because everybody, I think Christina said it earlier, everybody learns differently. Everybody has different ways of doing things. The way I analyze something might be different than somebody else. So I need to understand how they're thinking about it. And, I think it's really important to not jump to conclusions about why somebody maybe isn't delivering something a certain way or performing a certain way when, touching on coming into a new role or a new company. It's easy to take what you hear maybe from other senior people who say, well, that person doesn't know anything, or they don't know what they're doing. You're going to have to do something. And, I could give an example. I mean, I remember coming into this company and there were improvements I saw that could be made. There was an accounting manager that, I thought should be able to do it. And I remember, throwing out some suggestions or ideas, first questions, I guess, like, well, what about this or that? And what was interesting, the initial reaction was, well, no, we can't do that. And I'm like, well, why not, right? And maybe helping them to think through why something was possible. What I found very interesting was, and I think of this individual in particular, I remember her coming back a couple days later and saying, she was very excited at the possibility to make the changes and to implement some things. And what I came to learn is the culture before I had joined had been very much one of, well, we can't don't change anything, do it, keep it the way. And so people put up their own blockers and thought, well, I'm just going to do exactly what was done before, because anytime I made a suggestion in the past, I wasn't allowed to implement it. And so you have to understand what came before as well and why they might be thinking the way they're thinking, not just what they're doing.
Very well said. Let's shift to another type of transition. So CFOs, even when you're in role and at a company for some time, you've got ongoing change you have to deal with. So Christina, let's go to you. How do you go about creating a people culture that you would need as a CFO to create ongoing change, positive change and development?
Well, I think one thing that is a hallmark of my leadership is continuous learning. And I think, sometimes that can be trite when we say continuous learning, but really articulating to people what that means. And for my team, I've tried to simplify it. Number one, as a leadership team, we lead by example. So I commit every year, at least once a year, to take some sort of training or development class and learn something new for myself. And I challenge all of my leaders to do that. And we challenge all the staff to do that. And in terms of simplifying it, really explain to them, it's not necessarily about taking the latest computer-based training or going to a class, but it's about learning a skill. So commit to yourself to learn how to do one or two things each year, whether it be taking formal training or classes or certification, or sitting with your colleague or teammate and learning how to do their job. But every year, commit yourself to learn one or two new things and to add to your skill set. And by doing that, that continues to keep us on the front edge of what we need to know. It's continuous development, it's continuous improvement, because the situation will always be changing. And I think we never want to be in a case where we're on our heels. And so I think this concept of learning something new every year and committing yourself to it, not only going to a class, but really applying the skills that you've learned and learning from those around you, creates a culture where everybody is a part of it. And also the leadership team leads by example.
Excellent. Judy, actually all of you touched earlier on some of the newer capabilities that you're really focused on. I heard things like collaboration, soft skills, regulatory knowledge, communication skills, storytelling. We'll start with you, Judy, but really for the group, what capabilities are you most focused on right now to develop within your teams?
So when I joined Intercontinental, I created 90-day learnings. So I call them 90-day sprints. And during those 90-day sprints, we have very specific focus. So the first 90 days, we focused on really learning about the company, the strategy, our guests, our owners, who help and pay our bills, right? So we really learn about what we are doing, what we are very good at, what the competitors are better at, and learning how we play a role in delivering the platforms that the property owners use or the guests go through when they do mobile check-in or they call the call center, etc. So that was very important. I used myself as the guinea pig, so to speak, and saying I'm new, I know nothing about it. And but I also learned that most of the group worked in their silos. They knew about their area, they knew about their business cases, they knew about either the guests or the owners, but they haven't really thought about the entire journey. What are we doing? Or technology, right? So without saying outright, everybody recognized that they all learned something, not only about what we do, but also where career opportunities could lay within our own organization, which was just an added bonus. The second 90 days, we really focused on technology. Very, very important. And that was the scariest, I think, 90-day start for the team, because it was something very new. So when traditionally, when we think about or used to think about learning and development, you would think you take a Harvard course, you take something that is mostly book-based, right? And when we went to school, I would say all of us, technology was not on the menu. We didn't have to think anything, a Tableau tool or any of those things. Nobody talked about them or storytelling. So I really focused the team on embracing technology, that it was not scary, but it's something that we need to learn how to live with and use it as something that will help us do our job better. So how did I do that? I used my network on LinkedIn, some friends, ex-colleagues who were experts. So I had sessions on data science, and somebody came about visualization, and the next person came about storytelling, so that we had a theme that we went through. I had a few contacts network in Microsoft. Microsoft has been leading transformation, digital transformation over 10 years. So 3 people from the group came, and over 3 or 4 weeks, they talked 3 or 4 sessions, weekly session. They talked about how they have gone through transformation. And that was, I think, the turning point for the team, that they understood that what I was doing was not cutting edge. When the team from Microsoft talked about 10, 12 years ago, how they started, then it dawned on them that actually there's, the path has been paved. We just have to get going. And we did learn about AI, RPA, machine learning. And at the end of this session, we actually started our own journey on RPA, which was really like, now what? Now that you have learned all these things, it's interesting, fascinating, and you're not that scared. How do you use this knowledge and actually impact your daily life? So I also learned through my discovery that we had an RPA group. I started engaging with them. The team started thinking about what are the activities that would qualify. And we started going down the path, and they were no longer afraid. So just really creating the opportunity for people to embrace it is very important. And maybe the third session, the third 90 days, which is what we're just finishing now, has focused on business partnering. We talked about the importance of being a strategic partner. And we see the top, my directs being the best at it. But at lower layers, there are opportunities. People have to embrace it as much as the manager or the director or the VP has to embrace it and allow them to develop those skills, because you don't wake up when they get promoted to be a VP or a director and not have ever done business partnering. So I brought in a lot of my network, from finance analysts to managers to VPs to CFOs, and then the business partners, from CEOs to salespeople, other operational marketing CMOs, so that they could see how at each level you business partner, and also how the business partnering is perceived from the business point of view. So using a lot of different ways of visualizing, helping people visualize that at every level there is success, and that the people who were the most shyest were able to succeed. So there is hope for all of us. So those are some of the embraced that I have done it, and the team embraced it, and they are looking for the next 90 days, which I have to think about what that one will be.
Excellent. Love the 90-day development sprints. Great idea. How about the others? What capabilities are you focused on with your teams, or perhaps examples of things you're doing to help develop your team?
I'll jump in, Todd. I guess I think what Judy's been doing, a number of those things I've done over the years too, and you really do have to have a mixed approach in terms of coaching people, I guess, and helping them to get there. But I think I really focus a lot on the soft skills. You mentioned that before, and I think over the years, over multiple teams that I've led, one of the most important things is getting team members to learn from each other, to open up. I've invested time in kind of, I'm not going to say Myers-Briggs, but those types of exercises, sometimes with a facilitator, where people can learn to understand where others are coming from. I have some great examples where I've led teams. I've walked in and there's some kind of conflict between individuals, and they just can't talk to each other. And it's getting them to actually talk to each other and understand where the other one is coming from. And so it takes time to do that. You can't just say, okay, you two must now work together perfectly because I say so, right? You've got to create the environment which facilitates that. And so, it's an area, it's funny, whenever and I've done this in most of my roles, and people always kind of laugh at me and say, finance never does this kind of thing, never invests in people in this way. And Todd, you're smiling because you're on the HR side, but I'm kind of seen as an anomaly in the different businesses and organizations I've been, because to me, it's so important to develop those communication skills, those interpersonal skills, to understand that not everybody's going to be the same, and people are going to work together in different ways and may have reasons for acting certain ways or working certain ways from the way they've grown up. So it's something, and it's not one, okay, I had this session and it's done. It's a journey. You start it and you just keep building on it. I mean, I've led teams for a couple of years, and you every few months you get together and you out of the office or offsite or somewhere that just makes it a lot easier discussion to facilitate, where people aren't being distracted by work and the black and white and the numbers. And I think my teams have really engaged with that. They've learned to be better professionals, and it helps them to, I think, also learn to interact with other functions and to become better business partners too. But the first thing is to get the team to work together, and it helps them to become better leaders, to grow into leaders as their careers develop, because they've been exposed to some of that thinking and how to interact with people and maybe be curious about other people, listen to other people, and learn from other people.
Excellent. Tracy, Christina, just want to give you a chance to jump in if you wanted to.
Sure, I could jump in real quick. I mean, one of the things I've been working on lately is empowerment throughout our global organization. We had a very corporate headquarters focus, and as I mentioned, we're in numerous countries. I can break it into 5 large regions, and where there was some efficiency by having corporate do a lot, the idea of pushing some of that out to the various regional heads and empowering them to make recommendations on their budgets and work within their business leadership and so forth, and then coordinate with headquarters, as opposed to it being pushed down and pushed back up in terms of requirement, has led, I think for us, it's been a bit more work in terms of the efficiency of getting everything in on the same deadlines, and everything is smooth throughout our systems architecture and so forth. But the improvements made have been significant, that by being willing to take a little bit of choppiness for 6 months, 6 months later, it actually works much faster than it did the first time, and you're getting a much higher quality. And I found the teams work together much better than it did before, because those in our various regions now feel empowered to call their colleagues in different places. And what I found is, one, I myself get out of the way, which is usually a good thing. They talk to one another and have come up with better solutions than had it been a push up, push down, and have worked a lot of things out because they all now feel like they're on an equal footing, and they are. It's not just a feeling, they truly are. And the problem solving capability, because people feel empowered to reach out and make that change. They're certainly more than bright enough and a whole lot more savvy than I am on some of the logistical pieces of it. It's really worked well. So for us, this last 6 to 9 months has really been about empowerment in various areas. And now they kind of have the faith. Like I said, there's certain things it's taken a little bit longer, but they see, oh, for next year's budget, we've got this, this, and this, and they're off to the races. And like I said, the best I can do is just get out of the way and let them do it.
Excellent. Christina?
Yeah, just Todd, one thing I will add, I just want to connect a dot back to one of our previous questions about partnering with the CHRO. I think everything we said, this is another opportunity to partner with HR when you're making tough decisions about the skills of folks. I have found that my HR colleagues are great in being more objective about the performance of staff. And so you actually can work with HR. Certainly you can look at past performance reviews, but many times the HR professionals know any particular challenges a staff person is having, what the history may be in terms of their management. Maybe they just weren't getting the development and communication and feedback from previous managers. And that's an opportunity as well. And so I think that partnership in terms of performance management and assessing performance is a good partnership between the leaders of finance and the leaders of HR to help create an environment where people can learn.
That's great. And to build on that, we actually had a question in the Q&A space about assessing. And so given the increasing importance of business partnering skills in finance, how do you assess talent with regard to talent that has a breadth of knowledge versus specialty? How do you think about that as a skill, and as you're trying to build business partnering skills? Any thoughts about one versus the other and how you've attacked that?
I'll jump in. I mean, I think, you know, I don't know if you mean assessing to hire or assessing in role. Obviously, the in role, yeah. One of the most important feedback, more important than your own perspective, is the business partner's perspective, right? What feedback are they giving? And you know, I remember very early in my career having had an opportunity to take on a role that wasn't a line role, but it was more of a liaison type of a role for a region. And talking to our corporate CFO at the time and talking about, and you know, how do you define success? How will, you know, a year from now, you know, I've been doing a good job. And I remember him saying to me, you'll know you've been doing a good job when they're calling for you. You're not being asked to be invited to the table, when they want you at the table. I mean, that's the ultimate, right? Obviously, you have to, not everybody will necessarily get there, and you need to gauge it. But I think, you know, you want to be at the table, and some people try to force themselves to be at the table. But frankly, if they're not adding value, they're not going to be invited. They're not going to be, when that conversation is happening about some, you know, initiative or something that the business partner is working on, they're going to, you know, you won't be the first person, the finance person won't be the first person they think about. So I think the feedback from the other side, and not just the feedback because I went and asked, but really, are they pulling that person in every time they're having some kind of a business discussion that finance could help?
Excellent. Thank you, Terry. We only have just a minute or two, so I thought we'd wrap it up. Maybe anybody have one particular insight that you'd like to leave with our audience when it comes to developing your team?
I'll go first, Todd. Just one, I said it at the very beginning and didn't circle back to it. It's about taking risk with your team members. Early in my career, I was given some opportunities that I can't imagine most people ever have been given, even very late in their careers. And to take on basically starting a business from scratch with no experience whatsoever in leading people or making product or building a factory or selling product. And I keep that in mind all the time. It's, you know, people don't have to have everything set to be able to take on that role, and really take that risk. Give them a little bit more to do. Challenge them, and and see where it goes, because they might actually surprise you.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I would say that our challenge as finance professionals going forward is to continue to optimize our business acumen, increase, optimize, maximize our business acumen. I think that the finance professional of the future is a business leader that just so happens to be overseeing the finances. And if when we see ourselves that way, then we're always trying to increase our knowledge about what the business drivers are that drive the financial results.
Yes, Christina, I think it's well said. I call those super jobs. So it's where we happen to do finance, but we have so many different areas that we impact and have the opportunity to learn about. So it's just being open and inquisitive and always asking the 5 whys. You know, in enterprise design, they teach you constantly try to get to the root of the matter, and the more inquisitive you are, you eventually start making up that puzzle pieces are coming together, and you understand the story. So I think it's absolutely essential as we move forward to develop that instinct in the.
Yeah, I think it's based on agree with everything everyone said. It's hire people who know how to learn, encourage them to do so, and give them the path to execute. That's
Well said. Well, listen, we're going to have to leave it there. Really good dialogue, great examples of things you've done. And I'd like to thank each of you as our panel and also the attendees for joining today's session. Have a great rest of the day and a great weekend.